thewellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives. This is Up for a Chat with Cyndi O'Meara, Carren Smith, and Kim Morrison.
Here we are, up for a chat about the hottest topics that are important to you, inspiring you to awaken the change within. Carren Smith's not here. I'm Kim Morrison.
And I'm Cyndi O'Meara.
And welcome to this week. Our beautiful girl sent us a message today about this podcast. Cyndi and I are on the road. We've been asked a number of questions around pregnancy, babies, breastfeeding, microbiome. And it seemed ironic that Miss Carren wasn't with us, really. So she was quite happy not to be a part of this discussion and, in fact, sent us this beautiful reason as to why she's not with us.
Yeah, she said, I have a problem with Sunday because we were going to record on Sunday, as it is the Bali bombing anniversary and I have a special day planned and it's pretty sacred to me. So would you and Kimmy like to go ahead and record without me? So we kind of thought, well, the cat's away, the mice will play. And she won't want to talk about this anyway. She'll be just going, oh, thank goodness I don't have to do this.
She'd be gagging, I think. She'd be totally gagging. So you're stuck with just the two of us. And I figured because Cyndi has so much knowledge around this, and the mother of 3 beautiful children and a stepdaughter, and me with 2 babies, that we could actually share our experiences around what we ate during pregnancy, what we did during pregnancy, maybe even around conception. Because I did a whole protocol and cleanse prior to falling pregnant, so I really planned all of mine. And
I think I had a good party, actually.
Were you in New Year's? Did you have any September babies?
No September babies.
But you're a September baby.
I am a September baby. I think I was a Christmas Eve baby. My mum and dad hadn't seen each other for 3 weeks.
Don't you love it?
Yeah.
So, sweetheart, tell me, with your knowledge and the things that you've done throughout your life, and obviously with your whole philosophy around vitalism, how did you approach pregnancy, and was it planned? What did you do around the whole concept of it?
Well, when we got married, we were still in school and university, and so we didn't want children while we were going through university. And that was another real issue, because I didn't want to go on the pill either. So I went and did the Billings method. I actually learned all about the Billings method, and there are so many better methods now. It's just unbelievable. There's Maybe Baby, there's OverQ, there's Francesca Naish's book. There's so many out there now regarding natural fertility, and that's conception and contraception. So for the most part, we wanted contraception during that time. And then when we decided to have our first child, it was just the last year of school, basically. We thought, right, by the time we get out of university, it's time to start having babies. And so it was just a matter of, well, I don't have to worry about where my cycle is or anything like that, and just enjoy. And I always prepared well with food anyway. I was always eating well. But I did go out and party on occasion, and I do remember a couple of babies coming from a party.
Can you just explain to us all exactly what a Cyndi O'Meara party looks like? Because I'm not sure if it's the same as the rest of us. So what's your interpretation of partying, Miss Cyndi?
Well, I might have one drink, and then I drink waters for the rest of the night.
Legless.
Absolutely legless. I don't understand the whole being alcohol fueled. I like one drink, maybe 2, but it's never more than 2. I can tell you that now. And it's never got Cokes and lemonades in it, that's for sure. And
so what is your, just on that note, what is your chosen poison, as they say?
Yeah, just a spirit, and usually on ice. So I like brandy, I like whiskey on occasion, and sometimes a vodka. My brother loves Armagnac and cognac, so I will enjoy
Cognac.
Cognac. I know, I say it wrong all the time.
I love the way she says it. Cognac.
Cognac.
One of the most... It's like
I'm so uncouth, aren't
I?
I?
It's like saying champagne. It's like,
or,
you know...
Or Cardonnay.
Yeah, Cardonnay.
Cardonnay.
What's your thoughts around people drinking when they're pregnant?
Well, I believe that you have another person's life within you that will want to live a fulfilling, healthy life. And so I think it's our responsibility as a mother, and I think the fathers are into this. This is part of the father as well, that we we take that sacred job, I guess it is, and really think about it. Because I, as a pregnant woman who had the young girl inside of me, has the eggs for that generation after her as well. So it's not only me that I have to worry about, but it's my grandchildren that are going to be changed in some way as a result of what I do to my body while I'm pregnant. So we have 3 generations that we have to look after when we are pregnant, especially if there's a female that you are nurturing within you. And people don't get that. They don't realise the responsibility of that. So I questioned everything. So I questioned... Back in those days, it was just ultrasounds, and I chose not to have ultrasounds. And now it's glucose tolerance tests and ultrasounds, and I don't know if they're doing any more tests because...
Amniocentesis you can do?
Yeah, you can do amniocentesis, and you could do that back then, but it's not routine. So as far as routine tests go, and I was looking up the ingredients of the glucose tolerance test. And
what would make you want to have that test, or why do they make it part of routine now?
Well, because of gestational diabetes and the harm that it will do to the baby if you do have gestational diabetes. But in my way of thinking, if you're eating well and not eating bad foods, and you can actually test your own sugar levels, your blood sugar levels, you can go and buy a $20 kit from the pharmacy now, and you can actually do tests in the morning to see what your blood glucose is like. And really, you know, we should be advocates for our own health. We should take responsibility for our own health. We should understand everything, because it's no use blaming when everything's gone wrong and you have a child that's not as healthy as it could be because we didn't take that responsibility. Instead, we put the responsibility into the hands of someone who thinks differently than a vitalist. They think very mechanistically. And Kim and I, you know, this morning we were sitting together and...
Cyndi actually stayed the night. We had a sleepover.
We did have a sleepover. I just didn't want to put in that, we were in bed together.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Okay. But I did have a sleepover because her husband's away and my husband's away, and while they're away we did play. So we had a sleepover, and then we woke up in the morning and Kim opened up a new book that she's been reading. And it was a vitalist's book. It was a book about how medicine looks at life very differently than a vitalist. So they're very mechanistic. They look at the component parts. So they may look at a plant and go, well, that part of that plant is what we need in order to create a drug, and we can patent drugs and we can make money off these drugs. But in actual fact, if you just take the plant...
synthetically copy that component and then patent it and then create this drug that's now worth a fortune by taking just one part of the plant. It was fantastic reading it with you.
It was, wasn't it? But then when you extract the oil from the plant, but not all the other components, then they're called essential oils, which are Kim's baby and what she does all her research on. He was talking about the potency and the power of these oils. It was really interesting, wasn't it?
And I think what was fascinating, like talking about pregnancy and stuff, I used essential oils all through my pregnancy and really enjoyed what they gave to me throughout, you know, whether I had morning sickness or a lower back pain or swelling of the hands and feet. I used my oils constantly the whole way through my pregnancy. So when I read literature that says, you know, shouldn't be used during pregnancy, and I have people phone me saying, oh, I've been told I shouldn't use essential oils at all during pregnancy and things like that, I kind of go, wow, but you're happy to take a Nurofen, or you're happy to take antibiotics, or you're happy to sniff petrol when you're standing there filling up your petrol tank.
And they're allowed to have chemotherapy when they're pregnant. It's a new thing. Yeah.
I'm not knocking it in the sense that I'm not trying to stand here as some hero and say, oh my God, I can't believe you do that. If we knew better, we'd do better. But I just stand there and sometimes have a little chuckle to myself that people actually say to me, oh my gosh, can I actually use your oils? Can I put 3 drops into my lasagna I'm making? And, you know, I just think if you looked at the flavouring constituents in the flavouring world, there's nothing natural about these flavours, yet these are pure plant extracts. So, you know, what we were discovering this morning and what I loved about this book, and for those of you that are pregnant or considering pregnancy, it's when you find someone that's in the same wavelength as you and you start conversing in the same language, you feel like your tribe is around you. And I felt that this morning. I said to Cindy, oh my gosh, listen to this. It's exactly what you say about food, but it's talking about the vitalism of essential oils and with science in behind it. So from a pregnancy point of view, I just want to get back to what you were saying about you. Did you think like you shouldn't eat cheese and that you shouldn't eat, smoked fish or, things that we're told these days that are like really nasty and scary? I never thought about those things, did you? And I'm not that long away from having I've got a 15 and a 16-year-old, but...
No, there was not those guidelines back in the 20 years ago. They just weren't there, those guidelines. So you could eat anything that you wanted. There wasn't, don't eat soft cheeses, don't eat chicken. And the problem with that is the listeria and infection. The whole thing about the diet that they advise is all based on the scare tactics of bacteria and viruses and things like that. But if you have a healthy immune system, then you should be able to handle most of these. And if you do have a bug that creates a problem in your body will deal with it by you vomiting or having diarrhea, which will last a day or two. The thing is that we don't look at the intelligence of the body. And I think back now, Kim, through my pregnancy, and I didn't use oils, and I wish I'd known you then, because I would have loved to have used oils back then. I don't even know if I used perfume back then. I think I was a real, a bit of a hippie. I didn't use a lot of things, but I must have used a moisturiser. But to me, I
bet you used the oils in another way, in the sense that you probably loved lots of fresh herbs, and you loved probably using, beautiful products on your skin that you knew, like coconut oil or just plant. You probably were very plant focused without even realising it.
Yeah, it's funny. I think back and I go, I wish I could remember what products I had in my bathroom. But I know that I was very aware because my mum had made me aware. She always had natural everything around her. So as far as the food goes and what kind of diet should you have through pregnancy, you do not eat for two. That is just a myth. You eat as your body tells you. Our body has the unbelievable ability, and no one believes this, because what happens is that we eat crap food and the body loses its ability to tell you what to eat and how to eat. You have an intuition. When you start eating well and you get pregnant, you will have an intuition as to what to eat and how much to eat. And you'll have insulin and ghrelin and leptin, and you'll have these amazing hormones orchestrating when to be hungry and when not to be hungry, what to eat, giving you those cravings. And if you're eating well, your body will give you the right cues. If you're not eating well, it won't. So my thing is, get going long before pregnancy. Get these cues running well before pregnancy, and then while you're pregnant, your body will tell you. It's just beautiful. And I don't change my diet, whether I'm breastfeeding or I'm pregnant or whether I'm preconception. I never changed my diet. It always stayed with real foods. But these days, when women are breastfeeding, there are so many issues that we have now. And there are so many problems with our babies not being able to tolerate some of the foods that we're consuming. And the reason they can't tolerate it is because we have leaky guts, we have poor microbiomes, and as a result of the leaky gut and the poor microbiome, we are passing the microbiome onto our children, and we're going to talk about that through the birthing process. Yeah, because it's really, really important that people understand this. So we're passing on not only our genetics, but our epigenetics, and more importantly, our epigenetics, which in turn is creating a group of children who have intolerances to almost everything. And
so do you think it's because of the mother that these children are being born with intolerances?
Mother and father.
Mother and father.
Grandmother and grandfather. It's not just our mothers. So if I look back at my grandmother's era, so she would be over 100 now, if I look back at her era, we probably were just in the beginning of the chemical revolution. So what she passed down to my mother and then my mother passed to me, I may be affected by my grandmother. But I'm pretty strong, so my assumption is that my grandma had a really good immune system and a good microbiome, and so did my mum, because there weren't drugs around then. But let's look at the grandmother of today. So the grandmother of today could possibly be around 40 or 50. Would I be right? So I'm
beyond.
the mother and beyond. And she then passes her microbiome, and that was the beginning of antibiotics and the beginning of births in hospitals, the beginning of sterilisation, the beginning of caesarean sections being greater and greater and greater. You know, the rate of caesarean sections in some hospitals around Australia is 30%. In some hospitals in other countries, it's sometimes 95%. So, and this is from a movie that I've just watched, an amazing documentary called Microbirth. And microbirth is all centred around the birthing process and the seeding of the microbiome. And the scientists on this microbirth documentary are saying that we have one chance, and this is what scared me. We have one chance to seed the microbiome, and the microbiome being all the bacteria from the mouth to the anus, through the vagina, into the ear canals. Any orifice you have or any warm spot you have a microbiome. So on your skin, you talk about that, the importance of the ecology of the skin. So what it's saying is if we have one chance to do it, and if we don't do it, then we are fighting against a problem that affects the immune system, affects the health of the child, affects the child being able to digest food properly, affects the child being able to have the energy that it needs, against obesity. So in my way of thinking, I believe this is part of the problem, not the whole problem, but it's a big slice of the problem. So what they're saying is that vaginal births are the best. That's the first time that the baby will start to get the bacteria of the mother. And the reason why the vagina and the anus are so close, you know what Carren will be doing right now, don't you?
I know.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, thank God she's not here.
Goodness, she's not here. She may not even listen to this.
No, I don't.
So because they're so close, is that a couple of days before you start to give birth, and the body knows that this is happening, it's preparing. So there is a change in the microbiome in the vaginal area. So as the baby comes through, that's its first contact. It takes it on the mouth, through the mouth, because that's why we come through that way, on through the skin. Then the next thing is to put the baby on the skin to skin. Do not take the baby anywhere else. So straight from being birthed onto the skin and to the breast. And then what happens from the breast milk is that there is immunological factors, bacterias, the microbiome of the mother is being seeded non-stop. It's just unbelievable. So the breast milk helps with that. And what they're now saying is that they always wondered why there was so much sugar in breast milk. There's also a lot of fat in breast milk.
Are you talking about the colostrum, that very first?
All through, colostrum right through. The colostrum's got more fat, but the breast milk has quite a lot of sugar. But do you know what the baby can't digest the sugar? Do you know what the sugar's for? It's a special type of sugar, and this sugar is to feed the healthy microbiome.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like when you watch this documentary, I think it's brilliant. It goes
Where can you get it?
Well, it's online, but I've tried to download it. It comes out of England. Now, it's just come online, 20th of September. I've tried to download it in Australia, and my brother has tried to download it in Australia. We can't seem to do it. So I have actually emailed Tony, who's the producer and the person who had the whole idea about this, and I've said to her, why cannot in Australia we download it? You can buy it.
Oh, okay.
You can buy the DVD, but I guess it comes out of the UK. But for some reason, from her site, which is microbirth.org, maybe.
Maybe just Google it.
Yeah, just Google it. And look, it's a fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
If I was a midwife or a birth support person or something like that, and someone who was pregnant or looking to be pregnant, I'd be very much looking up movies like that.
Well, the beautiful Mel Kent, who now is the coach on my Healthy Living Club. Here's a beautiful young lady who had not been taught well about diet, had 60 kilos extra on her, and made the decision that she was going to get rid of it. And came across my program, my protocol, the 4-phase fat elimination protocol, and over a 12-month period lost that 60 kilos.
It's a whole person, Cyndi.
I know. And she was told she would never be able to have another child naturally because she had PCOS. She had ultrasounds on her ovaries, and she had 54 cysts in one ovary, I think she said, and 40-something in the other. And sorry, Mel, if I've got the facts not quite right, but I know it was huge numbers. And she did the protocol. She rang me up one day and she goes, "It's your fault I'm pregnant." I said, "I don't think so, Mel. I think your husband may have had something to do with that one." And she said, "I was told I was infertile and I'm now pregnant." So what was interesting is that she did have an ultrasound because she'd had so many ectopic pregnancies and so many problems that she decided to have an ultrasound. I believe if she'd had one or two or none, I can't remember the exact number, but it was so minimal because they took ultrasounds of her ovaries as well, and all the cysts had disappeared. So she no longer had PCOS, no polycystic ovarian syndrome anymore.
So the body can heal quite extraordinarily.
The body is amazing. And she knows that's from real foods.
Yeah.
And she's a testament as to her whole thinking changed about, you know, birth and the importance of it. And she had her last baby as a free birth. That means that she was home alone with her husband and children, and they birthed that baby together. We were, weren't we? It was just one of the most special times. I just think it was
proud
brilliant.
Aunties.
Yeah, we were proud aunties. But I sent her the 9-minute clip of microbirth. I said, "I think you'll really find this really interesting." And she decided to do a public showing of microbirth. And she got 85 people from Townsville to come to this public viewing of microbirth on the 20th of September this year. She now is a force for change. She wants to get it into hospitals. So, you said this is good for midwives. She wants it in hospitals because not only did they talk about vaginal births, but they also talked about how can we fake a vaginal birth in a cesarean section. So
you mean if someone, because that was my question to you. I'm sure whilst there's a lot of people that elect Caesars, but when there's a matter of life and death, you are going to elect for a Caesar no matter what. Yeah. Is there a way that you can actually create that same microbiome on the baby and the mother?
Yes, yeah, and that's what they've come up with. So this is what they're doing at the moment is, and as we know better, we will do better. So if there is a cesarean section coming, before any drugs are administered to the mother, because the drugs affect the microbiome, what happens is that they get some gauze and they concertina it in its folding, and they insert it into the vagina of the mother.
While she's in labour?
While she's in labour, before the drugs are given at cesarean section. So if it's an emergency cesarean section, then it's quick. But if it's not an emergency and it's been elected because there's been 2 other cesareans or whatever reason there is for, this is the process that happens. So they insert it in, I think it's for 40 minutes to an hour. They take it out and they put it into a sterile jar. Not a sterile jar that's got antibacterial washes or anything like that in, but one that's been heated. They put it in the jar. Then the mother is given any medications or drugs that she may need in order to have a cesarean section. Then as the baby comes through the skin, the gauze is laid over the baby. And the baby is pulled out through the gauze, basically, and onto the gauze, and the gauze stays on the baby. Then the baby goes straight to the skin to skin, onto the mother. It's not whipped away or anything like that. It goes skin to skin to the mother, and then breastfeeding.
That's weird because in caesareans, and forgive me if I'm wrong here, but whenever I've seen them on One Born Every Minute, I watch that with my daughter all the time. With a caesarean, the mother is blocked off from seeing anything.
Yeah.
There's a big screen there. So why do they do that? Is it because the mother might freak if she sees herself being cut open?
Well, I think I'd freak.
Well, I think I would too.
Yeah,
but she feels the pulling apparently and the tugging. But why? How do you do that then in a caesarean situation? Because the only time I've ever seen things like that is that they end up whipping the baby away and wiping it down with a towel and wrapping it all up before the mother's even had a chance.
But we did what we knew then.
But that's still happening today.
Yes, it is, but that's what microbirth is all about. Microbirth is an education tool to, first of all, maybe start with our beautiful midwives that are thinking differently, and then get it into the hospital system as well. So Mel has this thing where she wants to get this into the hospitals in Townsville. So here's one young woman in her 20s with an absolute passion to change the face of how we do things at birth in order to birth children who have the ability to be healthy without food intolerances, without immune system problems. So we're beginning. We're learning more, and we're beginning.
Thing, Cyndi, is that this may not be, foolproof in the sense that it will stop anything and everything ever occurring bad to your child, but it is definitely on the preventative and the proactive and the vitalistic way of doing things. So, because things can still go wrong with people with vaginal births as well, as far as allergies and things like that. But that would be another situation again, wouldn't it? Is that then based... What causes a child to have a peanut allergy, for instance, or a baby to come into the world that's covered in eczema all the time? What's your thoughts around what causes that?
Well, I really think it's the exposures that we are now, or the chemicals we are now exposed to, the epigenetics, this whole world that we live in. We have to be strong in order to handle it, and if we're not strong, we don't handle it well at all. We've lost our robustness. And my belief is if we can do as many things as we possibly can to improve the robustness of our children that are now being born, then humanity may have a chance of doing a little bit better than what we're doing right now. So I look at my brother and my sister-in-law. So they've just had their oldest is 3 and their youngest is 11 weeks. And their firstborn was in a hospital, but doing the best that they could. Their secondborn was a free birth at home, just the two of them, Nelson watching on. But both of those children, even though I know what Susanna did, she did everything right, and so did my brother. They worked together, preconception, conception, pregnancy. What Susanna does, Marcus does. Although I do notice Marcus will have a coffee, and Susanna every now and then just has a little nibble. It's so cute. It's so cute. That's probably, all right. And the almanac and the cognac, right? Okay, all right. Oh, what is it?
Cognac.
Cognac.
Like class beer grills.
No class whatsoever. No class.
Let's take it to Champagne in France. Have a Cardenet.
Have a Cardenet. I should have been.
Sauvignon Blanc.
Oh.
Something that's just come to me with the book we were reading this morning. We are assaulting our senses in such a violent way. One thing that I always ask people, do you think we're born with a sense of smell, or do you think that we learn smell? And I always have different people respond in different ways. And most people think it's both. We're born with a sense of smell and we learn it. And that is actually the correct answer. But you think about this, and I've never said this before. A lot of young women having babies nowadays, the smell of birth, there's nothing nasty about the smell of birth. It is very raw, without a doubt. For those of you that have been there, done that, you will know. But if you're in a hospital, there's a very clinical smell as well with all the disinfectants. If you're at home or you've got your oils now, I will say that my husband illegally put the vaporizer on under the bed because I so desperately wanted the oils in the room, because I couldn't actually stand the smell of the hospital that I had my children in. So I didn't think about the light, the flame with the oxygen tanks. Yeah, so let's just say that.
Oh, thank goodness there are electricity ones now.
Yes, there's beautiful diffusers you can take into hospital now, and we've now got them online actually, and I've noticed a number of people that are pregnant are really studying, and I would encourage you to get these diffusers because they are phenomenal to have in the birth room, particularly if you are choosing a hospital birth. But I want you to think about, Cyndi, the creams, the deodorants, the perfume that mothers wear. You are, in a way, robbing that beautiful child the chance to really explore smell, and the smell that they become so primarily attuned and tuned into is the mother. I know myself, if you're breastfeeding, but you put your breast to another baby that's not yours, that baby will be confused. There's not that instant, the mouth wide open, get me on there. I understand the chance that sometimes we have to nurse other children. And what do they call that? When
Wet nurse.
Wet nurse, I understand, and I think that's even fantastic from a point of view if you can't breastfeed or if you've got someone in your tribe that can. And I don't actually hear very much of wet nursing these days anyway. But what I'm just suggesting to those of you that are thinking of having a baby, maybe stop wearing perfume. Stop wearing these strong-smelling chemical deodorants and allow your body odour. I'm not saying you have to smell of BO, but you can use baking soda and a beautiful, soft, subtle essential oil as your perfume. Because when that baby is born, the smell is one of its most primal senses that we do not pay attention to very much in this day and age. And I loved his analogy in that book this morning where we think entertainment is watching blood, guts and accidents and fighting on the big screen as entertainment. But when he said, throw in the smell of that, would you find it as entertaining? That blew me away. In the sense that we do not pay attention to smell the way we should have. So our odour of the body is very important, and I think just as important, because if you think about it, smell is so closely linked to our emotions. So I've been privileged, Cyndi, to be at 6 births, and 2 of my own, obviously, but the 6 births that I was a support person in, I used the oils with that mother, with that pregnancy, and also for the father, I'll add, because sometimes the father's freaked out as well. So I would use calming oils, or I would ask, when one birth in particular, the mother was actually, I think she was going to deck him because of the pain she was in. I actually gave him a drop of essential oils of lavender and lime on a tissue, which was a happy but calming blend, and I just said, look, go and get yourself a cup of coffee, you're sniffing this. And left her with me, and I spritzed her, and I used oils on her lower back and things like that. Jasmine is the most extraordinary oil to use during labour. So I would use the oils like that. But when those babies were born, the smell that we had was just the subtle aroma essential oils that was with the mother. And I don't know, and without even realising it, Cyndi, but back then I realised that was my little way of creating a vitalistic birth in a very sterile environment. Intuitively, that's what I felt was the right thing to do. So I'm just suggesting for those of you that are pregnant and looking to having babies, please make sure you don't think that it's important that you don't smell or that you should have deodorant on while you're birthing. I would actually take it with the food. I would also look at the smell as one of the most primal senses that we could help that child to be in touch with from the moment it's born. And therefore, as it's growing, you may find that you won't want to use those chemicals. Danny and I were given so many products. Bless all these beautiful people that sent us gifts, because Danny was a well-known cricketer, and of course our stories were in the magazines, and as a part of that, people would send us gifts. And I didn't know you back then when I gave birth, Cyndi, but I was very much aware of chemicals in skin products, and I didn't even give them to the Salvation Army because I didn't want other people to have to use them. And that might sound really bad, but I actually felt products like those well-known baby products should be binned. I don't think we should be putting these petroleum mineral-based products near our babies. So for me, it was very important that the sense of smell, because of how we feel, those oils and natural and food and all of that, it was very important to me back then, as well as obviously eating well.
And that's not just preconception, conception, birth, or pregnancy, birth, but it's also after birth as well, because as we're breastfeeding our babies, and I know there are some people who cannot breastfeed babies, but if you prepare properly with food and do everything the best you can, then the likelihood of you being able to successfully breastfeed is far greater than if you have not prepared. And the greatest thing that we can do is get the microbiome working in the human body so that there's a lifetime of health, not a lifetime of sickness. And so it's really important not, we think about pre-birth, birth and all this, but it's all throughout.
And would you say, just my thoughts on this, if someone's listening and they're like, oh my gosh, I haven't paid attention, but I'm 6 months pregnant. my thoughts are, it's never too late.
No.
Start now.
Start now,
You know,
yeah.
even if you've given birth, if your children are 3 years old, if they're 5 years old. I mean, look at Mel. She changed her whole life from one pregnancy to another in the way... Gosh, there's a picture she put on Facebook.
Oh, I know.
It's a picture of a very morbidly obese woman holding a baby with chocolate all over its face. And then there's a picture of this exquisite being, which is Mel, holding a baby, very, very slim. And she sent it to me because it's got on there the ban the heart tick approval, you know, because she's fighting there. I sent her a message saying, oh, sweetheart, I don't think you should post that. And she came back, why? And I said, oh, darling, the woman in the top picture would be mortified to think she'd been compared to someone as beautiful as you. And she came back, oh, you silly doof, it's me. I honestly did not realise.
I didn't recognise her.
I didn't realise the pre-person was actually, that's how different she looked and how, I'm just, the word microbiome for me is like, I'm sure the microbiome on that being compared to that being, you know, the before and after would be completely different. Do you, therefore, my question to you is this, you have the ability to change your microbiome and rebuild it, and you can do that instantly, as in, like, you can instantly start repairing it, can you?
You know, if you watch the documentary Microbirth, they said you have one chance to seed it properly. I'm hoping that is not the truth. I'm hoping that we can repair. So these are the things that we do know, is that bone broths are a wonderful way of giving yourself an amazing amount of nutrition and feeding a healthy microbiome. Fermented foods is another way, so sauerkrauts and kimchis and kombuchas and yogurts and kefirs and cultured cheeses, and there are fermented foods everywhere. So these are ways that we know that we can reseed it. But what's really interesting, and I think it was in Microbirth I read this, or watched this or something else, like, it's all microbiome at the moment. It's just stunning what we know about the microbiome. So what they're saying now is that the microbiome actually tells you what to eat. It has the ability. So if you have a really healthy microbiome, it will ask for the foods that will make it live, such as proteins, good quality proteins, meats, fish, chickens, any wild meats. It will ask for vegetables. It will ask for fruit. It will ask for all of the real foods. If you have an unhealthy microbiome, it will send to the brain for you to eat sugar and refined foods, because that's what keeps it alive. So they're actually seeing this.
You mean there's like, you could have could there be two personalities?
Yeah.
Two characters of microbiome?
Well, there are different strains. Some are pathological and some are nurturing to us. And we live in a symbiotic relationship as long as the pathological ones do not grow past what they should be and they're kept under control. And we just have them there. They're always working symbiotically together. As long as it's not out of control, then your food choices will be different. So, for instance, in autism, many children who have autism or Asperger's like only certain foods, and they won't have a variety of foods. And what Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride has pointed out is that it's the microbiome asking those people to eat more of those foods in order for them to survive. So they want to live. The microbiome, the unhealthy microbiome, wants to live. They're also finding, this is more information that we now know about the importance of the microbiome, is that in certain diseases, one of the bacteria in the microbiome is completely out of control, which may present as rheumatoid arthritis, which may present as some other disorder. It's just fascinating what they're now figuring out. So
it really is. Your gut is a brain, isn't it?
Well, it is. There's a TED video that says the gut in your brain. It's actually in my education course. We actually talk about it because we are 1/10 of the genetics of our microbiome. So they're 90% of us. So they do more biochemical reactions. They're making more vitamins. They're making more decisions about our body than we're making about our body. Well, our cells are making about our body. And we must live in this symbiotic relationship, because if you do not have a microbiome, you're dead. If it doesn't have you, it's dead. So it wants to keep you alive, but there are some that are pathological that need a different type of nutrition to the ones that are non-pathological. It's what we now know.
If there's bipolar microbiome. One minute it's really good, and then you pig out and you lose it, and you end up going off the wagon, and all of a sudden the other one's in.
Well, they're actually looking at that as well, is that the dysbiosis of the microbiome could possibly be affecting our thoughts, affecting how we feel about the world and what we see about the world around us.
But that's so obvious.
It is obvious when we now look at it.
I know, because when you think about it, when I've eaten something really bad, I'm negative. I don't feel... I don't know if I'm negative, a horrible person, but well, maybe I am. Maybe I don't realise it. But the reality is you don't feel great. Your tummy's bloated, or you've got irritation, or you've got a headache, a food hangover. Like, seriously, it is your body's way. We are so disassociated and disconnected, aren't we?
Yeah. But what's exciting about science is it's teaching us what we should have known as common sense anyway.
But this is what our tribal ancestors were in touch with.
They were, but they didn't have the packaged foods in the grocery stores and the marketing and advertising that made us eat these types of foods. And, in the beginning, I don't think anybody really realised that this is where we would be. So breakfast cereals started back in the 20s and 30s, and I'm sure Dr. Kellogg's, even though he had some weird ideas, didn't believe that his cereals may be part of the growing epidemic that is now associated with obesity, food allergies. I'm sure he didn't start like that. But now that we know better, let's stop this. It's like the Heart Foundation tick of approval. We're trying in Australia, for people who are living overseas and don't know what's happening, but there is a cry for the stopping of this tick to breakfast cereals, to foods like lean cuisine that have 50 chemicals in it as opposed to foods like muesli bars that have got 70% sugar in them that aren't even real sugar. It's wheat-based sugars or corn-based sugars. So I think it's we're knowing better, and the more science we do, the more we realise that the further we've gone away from our evolutionary culture and tradition, the more we are getting sicker and sicker.
It's almost, Cyndi, like our intuition, our intuitiveness, and our spirit, if you like, our innate spirit, and the that part of us we can't touch. We almost have fallen in and under the spell of science and the medical world and doctors, and I'm not trying to disregard them, but I feel like it's almost like they found euphoria by looking down a microscope and could understand so many things, but they've forgotten or not wanted to focus anymore on just the magic, the spirit, the source, the innate intelligence of what these cells are. And I'm not blaming them, because I can imagine how excited you must be. I remember when we talked to Dr. Steve Myers, your Mr. PhD.
Mr. PhD.
I remember,
as you call him.
Yeah, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like he actually really made me realise how exciting it must be to look down a microscope and see change and chemical components, reacting and acting and all of that sort of jazz. I get that. But as an aromatherapist, and this is what's really got me excited, and probably why we're talking about this around pregnancy, is it is a miracle. Mm-hmm. It is a true miracle what the body does. I didn't think about conception. I didn't feel the moment the sperm met the egg and I was pregnant. I remember a metallic taste, and I remember thinking, oh, what's that? And I felt like I've been licking a balloon, and that was almost like the one sign that I got. And then my boobs got a bit sore. What are you looking at me like that for, laughing?
Just the balloon taste.
What, you mean the fact that I know what that tastes like?
No. Just doesn't matter.
I do remember.
I did a Kim Morrison. I just went somewhere else.
You tart.
I did a Kim Morrison going.
Oh, see, I haven't gone there.
No,
I don't know what those are like.
I like going a balloon taste. Really?
Oh, really? I was talking my 5-year-old's birthday party, blowing up a balloon.
Oh, that
actually.
one.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh my God, I did a Kim Morrison.
Oh my God, just
you taught me.
You well.
You taught me well. Oh my gosh. Sorry.
But what I'm just trying to say is that, you scientists out there, you intellects, you PhDs, you beautiful, amazing academics, please, for the sake of us that aren't, don't knock our intelligence or intuition or calling or desire to know more about the unknown or more about the possibility of that we cannot explain some things. There's just, sometimes there must be things that plants, animals, nature, things happen that surely we cannot scientifically explain, and yet we are the benefiter of.
Yeah.
And is there anything wrong with that? You know, like when we say a mother's intuition, you know,
Our gut feeling.
Our gut intuition. And I know sometimes, you know, we shouldn't trust that sometimes, because sometimes you do need, you know, a brain intuition, and you need logic and those sorts of things. But as a mother who's falling pregnant, I mean, for me personally, when Danny and I decided to have children, we were the same. Cindy, he was playing international cricket when we were married, and we decided not to have children until he finished. So we waited 5 years to have our babies. And I remember when we made the decision. Now, you've got to remember, for those of you listening to this, I didn't know Cindy around here this time in my life. I was on a real personal journey on this, and I wasn't someone who was really sick that decided then she had to get healthy. Remember, I came from an athlete's point of view, so I was interested in how the body worked, which was my focus and intention behind looking to health and wellness and what the body needed. So I had been on the pill. I'd been on the pill since I was a young teenager. You know, I was a teenager. And one of the things that I was told to go on the pill for was to help with my periods. Now, I didn't really, looking back, have that bad of periods, but for some reason the doctor just thought it would be good. And I didn't know anything about this. So I took his advice, and he said, it's only a very small amount of hormones, you know, and it's been proven for years. It's been around since the 60s, 50s, whatever. And I don't know, everything he said, with my knowledge at that time, sounded okay, even though I felt a bit funny about taking this little pill. Anyway, so by the time it came to me wanting babies, I have to be honest with you, Cindy, that's the time where I actually really looked at my body and went, what the hell have I been doing? Because I started reading and researching, and Francesca Nash.
I always say Nash,
No,
yeah.
you're right, Nash.
Francesca
Her
Nash.
book was the book I was
Was
reading.
it?
So her book was the one that taught me all about understanding my mucuses, my membranes, my ovulation, the understanding of by the moon, and all of this. I'd never even entertained what that was about. All I'd known was to take this pill. So that opened a whole world to me and Danny, and I would read it every night with him. And I'm sure sometimes he fell asleep and would just occasionally say, oh, yeah, that sounds good. But it didn't matter. The fact that he was supporting me to find out about my body. So then the next thing, you know, Kim's on a diet. I'm the latest. What does your dad say?
Yeah, I'm the victim of the latest book my wife has read.
Yeah, well, this was Danny's thoughts. So the next month, and Dr. Sandra Cabot's book was now in the liver cleansing diet. So I said to Danny, we can't have a baby yet. And he went, really? And I went, no, we need to cleanse our bodies. We've been having, I've been on the pill, and you have been taking anti-inflammatories for your being a cricketer, and you've been told for years you've got a bad gut, and you've been taking Metamucil, and you've been taking Psyllium husk. Like, we tried the natural things as well, but the doctors all said Metamucil was the thing. So can you imagine, from my point of view, how freaked out I got when I realised here we were thinking we were healthy human beings and really conscious. We'd been sucked into the vortex of the medical world and believed that what we were doing was the best thing. Oh, and at that time we were eating Olivio, which we were told by our doctor for Danny would be the best thing for him because it was a plant-based fat, not a saturated fat.
Which is margarine, by the way, for people.
Yeah, but we were told that it was, I just believed, and this is how ignorant I was, I just thought it was whipped olive oil. I thought, how clever. So I know this, I'm sorry, embarrassed almost to say it, but I'm sure some of you listening are with me on this. Anyway.
No, we get into that, Kim. We get into the meme of what everyone is doing, and just because it's common doesn't mean it's right.
I know.
Or the truth. And this is what's scary. You're just going through that. Like, both of us, I think, God, I wish we knew more. I wish we knew what we knew now then.
I know, which is why I'm so grateful my children hear it all from me.
Yes.
So, and not that I know it all by any means. In fact, the more I learn, the more I realise how dumb I really am, or how much I don't know.
But you know more than most people.
Yeah, but I'm also excited with that because it opens up possibility, doesn't it?
So we're at Sandra Cabot now.
So I did the liver cleansing diet, and Danny did as well, which actually helped his candida. Oh, funny that.
Funny that.
So he stopped taking all these things, and we were doing the liver cleansing. Then on our honeymoon, we went to England because he had a year in England playing for Lancashire County Cricket Club and then the Northern Lancs League. And while we were there, I was doing a course in homeobotanical therapy and counselling, and I was trying to do everything I could to learn about life. And it was during that time that we met a naturopath who actually started telling us about... so we were taking charcoal at one point. He made us take this charcoal, and it was to see how long it took to go through the system. So now all of a sudden I'm getting in touch with, oh my gosh, actually what I eat. Yes, this was what fascinated me with poo, was to learn that what I eat actually does go through my body. It's not just something I put in my mouth and then...
Something else comes out the other end.
There's actually a whole lot of metabolic processes and biological processes that occur in between. And each one of those things that I put in my mouth had an effect on my body, and that's where I started getting fascinated by it. So then, believe it or not, within a month we were pregnant. The following month I had that metallic taste in my mouth
and balloon
the
taste.
Yeah, I've been licking balloons. Shut up. You're so naughty. Anyway, but what was exciting, my darling, is that then I was reading all about birth and how important the birth and the birth canal was, with all that what's it called? The white stuff all over the paste.
No, that's the black. Meconium's the black.
They wipe it all away.
Yeah. What's it called?
You people are sitting there listening to this going, it's this, it's this.
Yeah.
So, vernix.
Vernix? Yeah, I think you're right.
So then when my babies were born, and even though I had quite traumatic births because they were very fast, I remember saying to my midwife, now this is the beautiful thing about New Zealand, midwives are seen as the lead maternity carers. In Australia, they're still not seen as the lead maternity carer, which I think is really sad. And I would love to create a movement around honouring what our midwives and the role that they play. In New Zealand, doctors are really happy for midwives to take over because they don't have to turn up at all the births at all different hours of the night. And these women and men are trained to really be the lead maternity carer. And I had a beautiful midwife, and she was the one that said to me, darling, as this baby's born, we're going to put her straight onto your breast. We want all that yummy, yummy stuff all over you and her, or it. We didn't know what we were having. So I'm very grateful, Cyndi, that, you know, unfortunately then I got the vitamin K injection, and again, I didn't know much, but I think I was on the cusp. I was in that wave, so, which is why I'm trying to say to people, don't feel like it's too late, because now you'll have an impact with your children. And even if you've got teenagers, you may have an impact with your grandchildren. So don't underestimate the power of knowledge.
I agree with you. It's like as we learn, we can then teach our girls and boys, because the boys are just as important in this. And I think if we were going to sum this all up, as we learn more and as we get more information and as science proves more, we realise that the natural way of doing things is the best. It can't always be possible because there are emergency situations, and we are very fortunate to live in this time where we have an unbelievable knowledge about things. We know that we should be doing things naturally, but if there is an emergency, we also have the facilities for emergencies. And that's what's so exciting, is that we have this knowledge. We know we should be doing things naturally, eating things naturally, breastfeeding, doing all of this. But just in case things don't go right, we have the knowledge and the services to do things differently. So, for instance, even breastfeeding, there's the wet nurse, and I know a wet nurse.
Oh, you do?
I do. You know her too.
Oh, wow.
She's the most amazing wet nurse. She's got enough milk for her baby and another baby, and she usually expresses for this baby. Yeah. But if that baby is around her, she will... I've got a photo of it. She just sent me a photo of it.
And does the baby know that she can suckle or he can suckle?
Yeah, and happy to suckle because it's the breast milk that she's been getting.
Wow.
From it's Mel, beautiful Mel.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, it's Mel that's the wet nurse, as well as doing her own. And she's just... And I've got a photo of her with the two babies on either side, and I can't remember if she's got milking cow or... I don't know what she sent to me.
How beautiful.
But, you know, there are women out there that are prepared to do this, and there's one such person. So, and we also have milk banks. Remember, we have milk banks, breast milk banks, and we actually have recipes using natural ingredients in order to mimic as best we can the milk of the mother. We can't do it perfectly because we just will never do that. And it's far better than any other formulas out there. So look at your options. If you can't breastfeed, please look at the options that are out there and be tenacious in your options, because it can get all too hard. But remember, if you spend that first 6 months exclusively breastfeeding and doing this right, you set your child up for a lifetime of health as opposed to a lifetime of chances of obesity and like autoimmune. One of the things, autoimmune. One of the things that we know is that we have leptin receptors. So leptin's the master hormone. It's the one that tells you, it's your fuel gauge, tells you when to eat, when not to eat, along with other hormones, as we talked about earlier. So the breast milk actually sets up the leptin receptors for the rest of your life. And this is the thing, is that we didn't know this stuff then. We didn't even know about leptin until 1994. So, of course, the 1960s, everybody believed that this powdered junk milk that we call formula was the way to go. But I'm sorry, it would not even be an option. I would do anything but give my babies that powdered milk. I don't know of any out there, and I'm hoping there are formulations out there, but I haven't seen any.
Yeah, I ended up, and again, because of my lack of knowledge, we did goat's milk. There was a goat's milk formula that we used. But looking back, if I was honest with you now, I've even said it to my children, I wouldn't do it now. And what I've done since then is I went and saw a homeopath, and she's a medical integrative doctor here in Brisbane, holistic, and she gave me homeopathic remedies to give to my children to help me for 2 years. My kids had these drops for 2 years every day to counteract the vaccinations that they'd received and the formula milks and things that I had done that perhaps I wouldn't do today, but perhaps if I'd known better, I wouldn't have even done them then. So, and as a mum, Cyndi, I've had to really work hard on forgiving myself for that, and I even can get a bit teary thinking about it, because I feel like if I'd done my children, the worst thing as a mother and a father is to feel you've ever done anything wrong by your children. But that was my way of trying to make up for my lack of knowledge. And I have 2 very healthy, cheeky, full-on teenage children that are very active and very conscious and very aware of their bodies. And so I'm thankful for what I've learned. But one of the questions that we had around this, my darling, was, and I thought this was interesting because you've already touched on it, you've alluded to it already. She said, what would you recommend to eat to fall pregnant? What would you recommend as your diet while you're pregnant, and what about after, for when you're breastfeeding? And you said something very interesting that maybe our listeners picked up on, was my diet's the same no matter what.
Yeah.
It's really good food. So just as a reminder, just tell us the sort of foods that you eat, so that people would know that when they're listening to that, it's okay, eat real food. But, a date is a real food. If you have too many dates, you're going to feel sick and you're going to put on weight. So tell me just briefly, what does a day in Cyndi O'Meara's life look like when it comes to eating?
Well, if I go back to when I was pregnant, because my food is very different now because of the availability and because of what I've learnt. It's still real food, don't get me wrong. So my favourite breakfast was porridge. I would have oatmeal, and I would make a mix of tahini, Hakia yogurt, which was a cultured natural yogurt in Melbourne at the time, some honey, and a banana. And this was what I had every morning for breakfast, and I would whip that up and then mix it through my porridge, and that was just the most sustaining thing that I ate every single morning for my breakfast. Now my breakfasts would include a quinoa. I sometimes do quinoa, other times I'll do eggs, or I'll do a green smoothie, and they're all in my recipe books. It's no use me going through them because they'll just take me forever, but they're all in my recipe books.
Do you eat meat at breakfast?
On occasion, I will, like the other morning I had lettuce and leftover lamb shanks. So I will do that. I will do leftovers for breakfast as well. Then, back in those days for lunch, I would have sandwiches. But I would make my own bread. And I would have salad sandwiches because I didn't eat a lot of meat back then. But I would, it was a salad sandwich. And then for dinner, it was always meat and veg or meat and salad. That's what my husband and I had every
or eggs,
single...
if you weren't eating meat.
Yeah. No, I was eating meat by the time I was pregnant.
Oh, okay.
I didn't eat it like now. I could eat meat breakfast, lunch and dinner. But in those days, I would eat a small amount of meat and then vegetables and salad.
Yeah.
So then...
And what sweets were you eating and things like that? Were you a big sugar person?
No, I don't remember... If I did, I would probably make a carrot cake, because that was what we did 25, 30 years ago. You would make a carrot cake or a zucchini cake. I had the Moosewood cookbook.
Yeah, I had that book.
Yeah, and so I would cook out of the Moosewood cookbook.
Actually, I've still got it. And the broccoli, Enchanted Broccoli Forest.
Enchanted Broccoli Forest. So I would cook out of those two cookbooks. Dorothy Hall was a real mentor of mine, as was Bernard Jensen. So all of these people were the ones that were my mentors. And my diet stayed that way up until 3 years ago. And then I stopped eating bread completely. And there's a whole story around that, which we don't need to go into now. But then I had...
What have you replaced that with, though? Like, so now tell us today's diet. Like, what do you do today?
So at lunch, I would, instead of having a sandwich, I would have salad.
Yeah.
With
your meat.
With my meat. Or leftovers or something like that. Or I may have some fermented cheese with an apple, something like that. If I'm really in a hurry and I haven't made up something, I'll have some fermented cheese with an apple. So, you know, I believe that we should eat the same no matter what. But having said that, if you're someone who's a female on a ketogenic diet, you can have intermittent infertility on a ketogenic diet. You cannot, men and women are very different, and everybody's going on these diets of no carbohydrates. And I disagree for women especially, because we need fat in order to be fertile, in order to be, when I'm talking about fat, I'm talking laid down fat on our body, in order to be fertile, in order for your hormones to work, in order to have a healthy baby. So, but we're not going to go into that now. That's just too much.
But I think people need to just be aware that your protocol is about resetting, recreating an opportunity for the body and gut to heal. So that's not the way you'd normally eat forever in a day.
Gosh, no. No. It's just to reset.
Yeah.
And it's a healing diet.
Yeah,
That's what it is. It's a healing protocol. It's not a protocol that you live on for the rest of your life. They're healing protocols. Then we get into this is how we do the rest of our life. But one of the things that we haven't touched on, and we're getting towards the end where we're up to our hour. Actually, we're probably past our hour, as we always do. But I think we need to just quickly discuss what happens after breastfeeding.
Yes.
So
yes, because that was another question. What are the first solids that you give a baby? What are the ways that you transition a child into solids?
So mine, I always did, and I can't remember the term that they use in like now, but I call it interest-based eating.
Right.
It was like interest-based learning. It's interest-based eating. So I would put food down if they were starting to sit at 6 months, which they are. Although some babies don't, but if they're sitting well at 6 months, I would put a food down in front of them in the high chair.
Yeah.
And without knives, forks, plates, anything like that. And it would be soft, so it could be a bit of avocado, or it could be, I remember putting an orange, that was quartered, just down. So they can't stick the whole thing in their mouth, but they can suck on it. And what I noticed with my babies is that if they put it into their mouth and they weren't ready to eat, they'd spit it back out again, but they'd get the taste of it.
Yes.
So they'd go, nom, 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 and it would never be swallowed.
Right.
Then I noticed at some point, and every baby is different, is that they would start to figure out how to swallow it. So to me it was putting real foods, natural foods, not ones that I'd blended or cooked or done anything with, but just foods that they could pick up and play with and put in their mouth and have a mouth feel with it, and if they could swallow it and chomp on it, great. If they can't, I think teeth are a really good indication as to when the digestive juices are starting for food. And some teeth come in early and some teeth come in later. So my rule of thumb is 6 months breastfeeding, and I know that this is not what everybody else is saying. Some people are saying we need to start introducing foods earlier, but mine is around the 6 month. And then it's all about letting the child figure out how to get the food into their mouth and how to get it down. So in the old days, you used to shove the spoon into the mouth and, shove it down their throat almost, which I don't think is right. So there's a whole... I forget the name of it. It's a whole movement now, but that was the way that I instinctively got my babies to eat.
I did the same. I started with things like avocado and banana. I did things like pumpkin or kumara, sweet potato, mashed, and added breast milk into it. And just transitioned them that way. Farrex was a very big thing around when I was young, but neither of my kids liked it. So I thought that my doctor told me that they should... who was it? Yeah, I think the doctor, the Plunkett nurse, I think, told me that I needed to start getting them onto Farrex. And then I looked at the ingredients of Farrex.
I know.
And I wasn't sure if that was natural, My grandmother actually said, I don't know what that is. And she was the one that told me, mashed avocado and banana.
Yeah.
And Mum even said to me, just go basic. Why do you have to spend money on food like that when it's all here? You know? And then what I learned was the more I mashed these food, I made a whole thing, because often for mums you're so exhausted, you're tired, you're trying to do everything. I'd make a whole lot and then freeze it in ice cubes, including my breast milk. I would freeze in ice cubes so I could use that to add to my baby food as they were transitioning. I fed my babies both on the breast until they were a year. I don't know why I had that in my head to keep going for a year. I do remember thinking at a year's time. And Jacob actually just decided one day he didn't want it anymore.
And they do that. Like I know with my oldest and my youngest, they breastfed for 18 months. Oh. But Casey became very disinterested about 13 to 14 months.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, if you're not interested, there's no point in continuing this. So once again, I'm baby-led. Oh, baby-led feeding. That's what it's called.
There you go.
So I'm led by the baby. I'm led by the child, because every child is different. And to say that this is what we should be doing... but it's nice for women who are getting into this and to have a little bit of a guidance as to what to do. And
I was scared, Cyndi. I had this baby and I didn't know what to do with it. I thought when it cried, it used to do I felt such a failure. I don't know if other mothers feel the same, but I felt so useless until I actually quieted down my stupid self-talk and actually realised most mothers survive motherhood. Most babies survive the distraughtness of their mothers. Apart from the day I dropped her off the change table, but that's another story. But, you end up thinking, you can do this. And if you're ever worried, the plethora of information just by YouTubing breastfeeding or YouTubing natural baby-fed food.
Yeah. Baby-fed,
you could do that, can't you, nowadays?
Well, you can, and I would be, if you're going to YouTube it or Google, make sure you look at a couple because there'll be a common thread. And you don't want to be with a fanatic that does it, but somebody who is looking at the natural way of doing it. Even a bone. Bones I used to give to the kids because they can hang on to a bone.
God, I used to love sucking on chicken bones.
Yeah, exactly.
Bones and things.
Well, big bones.
Yeah.
Big bones you give them that they can't shove down their throat.
Well, that's true. Darling, is there any other last advice you'd like to give around pregnancy, birth, breastfeeding? Oh, I know what I was going to say. Someone asked me, what would I recommend for sore nipples or baby rash and things like that.
Talk about this.
I know, but I'm just going to quickly throw it in. Maybe this is another topic another day. Coconut oil and jojoba oil, anything that was in my kitchen actually was what I used on my babies. So coconut oil was my godsend when it came to nappy rash and nipples, sore nipples and things like that. I've now created a thing called the Healing Skin Boost, which is something that I love to help people with a 28 product, which is great for nappy rash and healing, any of those sorts of things. But all I'd say is if you're going to use essential oils or anything on the body, then just keep the nipple clear. And if anything, put the coconut oil on it, or just a nice cold pressed carrier oil, just to keep it nice and moist and supple and in good hands.
Yeah, look, there's so much to talk about.
I know.
And it would take a book in order to do this, because there are so many issues, like what do I put on my stomach, to stop stretch marks.
Oh, rosehip oil.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, rosehip oil.
I've got a blend coming out shortly, note28.com. It's a stretch mark blend coming very shortly for all you pregnant people out there.
And should I or shouldn't I take supplements? Well, I'm hoping that everybody who has been listening to our podcast understand my take on supplements. It's about real food, and that's why I do my green powder and my colloidal minerals and my probiotics and the coconut oil and the inky. It's real foods. So, you know, and then we didn't talk about, I think we've talked in the past about vitamin K and all the procedures, you know, every time you make a change from nature during the birth process, this is what they were talking about in microbirth, from inductions to all the interventions, and 95% of births in Australia are intervened with in some way. 95%. Every time you do that, you stop the body's chance of doing the seeding of the microbiome, which is so key to stopping obesity rates, helping children think the right thoughts, having, you know, I just, what we know now.
And you know what that makes me think? What else are we going to learn? How exciting.
No, it is
what
exciting
else is coming?
times. It is.
You know, especially with someone like you, Cyndi. I'm so grateful, and I know I speak on behalf of Carren and all our beautiful listeners, but we just so appreciate the knowledge and the passion and the excitement you have around the research for these sorts of things. You are a trailblazer. You are an incredible woman. I feel very blessed to know, and I'm very, very grateful that, you know, my children, they came in last night, and Taylor's first things were, Cyndi, I told what was she telling about the science teacher?
The science teacher.
She goes, what did she say? I walked past my maths class, and there he is, 25-year-old teacher, standing there, and he's drinking a can of Coke. And I walked past him and, what did she say? She goes, I walked past him and went, oh, that's full of caramel flavouring, which we know is linked to cancers and the things. And then she carried on and she goes, oh, happy cancer.
Yeah, something like that.
She's just like, oh
she
my
was
God.
hysterical.
She couldn't wait to tell Cyndi.
I know.
Oh, it was beautiful.
I know, it was just gorgeous. And this is what we teach our babies, and they become strong advocates for change, and they then present with new babies coming along. So, look, it's wonderful, and I think our time is up, Kimmy.
Yes, my darling. Well, we have missed our beautiful Carren again, and we hope you've...
Actually, I'm going to interrupt you one more time.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No.
You're always so beautiful in your graciousness and your questions and the way you always thank us for being in your life, and I just want to thank you for being in my life too. And Carren, these podcasts have just taught me so much, and I love being with you guys. We're a great trio, and we bounce off each other, and even with Carren not being here, I keep going, where's Carren? Where's her little foot? But you know, she would never have inputted into this. She would have been yawning in the back.
We would have been getting handwritten notes.
Yeah.
Are we done
Are we done yet?
Trust us. She's
know.
Naughty in these podcasts.
And this would not be worth doing with her. So we're sorry she's not here, but it was probably good for all of us.
So on that note, thank you for thanking me, my darling. And thank you, our beautiful listeners, for your amazing feedback. We do look at every comment on Facebook, which is all the W's, facebook.com/up for a chat. You can post your comments on the wellnesscouch.com/up for a chat. We do look at them. And again, you can private message us on our Facebook page to let us know what you want us to talk about. I mean, this was a topic, and this was probably 5 topics.
Oh, it's huge.
But thank you for that beautiful email from you. And, you know, we also got an email just the other day from a lady, and I'm sorry I've forgotten your name just this minute, it's not in front of me. She said she listens to us every week, walking the streets of London. It's her weekly little thing. And I just said to Cyndi, can you believe people are listening all around the world to these little chats? I've just driven down to Brisbane. I'm about to go and do a wedding. We're off to a wedding. I'm the celebrant. And, you know, you're up for a chat. You're here with us, a fly on the wall. So if you want to get up close and personal, then I know Carren emailed us the other day in regards to our Awaken the Change Within retreat, which is in November. I know the VIP seats have sold out, but there are some general seating here in Mooloolaba on the Sunshine Coast. So if you'd love to come and play with the three of us and really interact with us, it is an intense day. There's a lot to learn, a lot to cover, and you know what, we'll have a bit of fun at the same time. So join us next week on Up for a Chat and become part of the ripple effect that's changing the world. We'll see you on the ride.
Hi, it's Damien Christoph here. 2015 marks perhaps the most important event the Wellness Couch has ever conducted. We've had 2 sold-out wellness summits these last years, but honestly, nothing will come close to our first ever wellness breakthrough. Your favourite Wellness Couch experts, the Up for a Chat girls, Quirky Cooking's Joe Whitten, Stu Hayes, Marcus Pearce, and of course the Wellness guys, are all gathering in Dandenong Ranges for 3 days and 2 nights for one incredible event. If you want possibly the greatest peer group in health and wellness to help you catapult your life to the next level, then we'd love to see you at the Wellness Breakthrough in February. For more information, go to www.thewellnesscouch.com.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavour to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.